welcome you all back to our 17th lesson, Biology 17th lesson, Animal Kingdom. So, before entering into the lesson, let's have a fast recap of what we have learned last week or last class. We learned about classification. In that, we learned about R.H. Whittaker, R.H. Whittaker's 5 kingdom classification, and the second we learned about Carolus Linnaeus, shortly called as Carl Linnaeus, and we also learned about the study of classification, that is taxonomy. Then we also learned about the hierarchy of classification, which starts with kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. So the largest hierarchy is kingdom and the smallest hierarchy is species. Now we will continue with the lesson, new topic. First let us start with basis for classification. So basically when we learn about classification, we come across various factors based on which the scientists went for classification. So those factors are actually called as basis for classification. So which includes, actually there are many factors, but in this lesson, as per your book, 9th standard book, we are going to learn about only 4 factors under the topic basis for classification. First one is level of organization. Second one is body symmetry. Third, germ layer. And fourth one is nature of coelom. So only these 4 factors we are going to learn. Again I repeat, level of organization, body symmetry, germ layers and nature of coelom. So based on these factors, many scientists have given classification. So let us start with the first topic, that is levels of organization. So basically we have 2 types of living organisms. One is unicellular and second one is multicellular. So this is actually based on the number of cells. If an organism is made up of only one cell, it is called as unicellular organism. If it is made up of many cells, they are called as multicellular organization. So again I just want to remind you one thing that I have said, I think I have said in the last class. Whatever you learn, whatever you have learned and whatever you are learning now, all will be useful when you go to higher classes, starting from 10th. Then if you are choosing biology in higher secondary, surely all these topics, all these concepts, all these points will be useful. If you avoid these concepts, if you avoid learning regularly, principal used to say often, individual learning, regular learning. So if you avoid this learning process, so automatically you will fail in your life. Instead of saying failing in your year, 9th standard or 10th standard or 11th standard, or instead I could even say getting low marks in 9th standard, 10th standard, 11th standard, I would say you may fail in your life, or in other words I would say you will find difficult to get through or difficult in higher classes. So to make it easier, you might have wasted your lower life, no problem. To make it easier, at least from now onwards, you start concentrating on the subjects, start concentrating on the points or lessons, whatever word can be used. That will be useful. So keep that in mind. For example, when I was doing my coaching classes for higher studies, those masters said, actually after completing 12th standard, those masters said that from 9th standard you have to concentrate, but that was too late. But now it is not too late for you. So from 9th standard start preparing, so that your aim may be becoming instead of saying becoming, I would say your aim may be towards a medical field, or an engineering field or accountancy field, so whatever, so that will be useful. So in Tamil they say கற்றவனுக்கு செல்லும் இடமெல்லாம் புகழ். So in that way what I'm saying you'll understand, I suppose. So keep concentrating on your studies. All these are simple concepts. Okay, so why I'm saying this, because you by this time you should be knowing unicellular and multicellular. So if you don't know, at least now you concentrate and understand. Okay, so if someone asks in future, you should be ready to say what is unicellular and what is meant by multicellular. Okay, anyway, coming to the lesson. Unicellular organisms are made up of just one cell, and multicellular organisms which are made up of many cells. So based on that, we have this organization as unicellular organization and multicellular organization. So example for unicellular is amoeba, single celled animal. Similarly, unicellular animal, another example is paramecium. So on your left hand side you find amoeba and paramecium. So these two are examples of unicellular animals. So we are not concentrating on the plants. So we also have unicellular plants like bacteria, yeast, even algae you have some unicellular. So we are not going to, I'm not saying those examples, so we will stick on to animals. So again I repeat, unicellular animals, example amoeba and paramecium. So I want to add one more thing, unicellular animals, example amoeba, which is an irregular shaped animal. So you could look into the picture which doesn't have a proper shape. Then paramecium, which is called as a slipper animalcule, slipper. So the shape looks like a slipper or a footstep. So they call it a slipper animal or slipper animalcule. So these two are examples of unicellular animals which have unicellular organization. What is unicellular organization? That is absence of multicellular organization is called as unicellular. Just last week I took for 10th standard this concept, so that's why I said concentrate on 9th standard. Okay, so same organization, unicellular, multicellular, we learn in higher classes. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so absence of multicellular organization, that is, in case of this unicellular animals or unicellular this amoeba and paramecium, that one cell does all the function. It undergoes nutrition, that one cell undergoes respiration, that one cell undergoes locomotion. But in multicellular it is not so. You might have learned in lower classes system of human being, respiratory system of human being, where you come across various organs, each organ made up of many tissues. Each tissues is a collection of cells. So you come across a complex phenomenon taking place in multicellular organisms, and that you call it as multicellular organization. What is organization? Putting together. So that organization makes us living. So when you imagine you are just walking or running to catch a ball, or trying to consume something, consume means eating something, or simply sleeping. Even when you sleep, you find organization of respiratory system, organization of digestive system. So that's why we are living. So this you call it as multicellular organization. So this is the first point. Based on the levels of organization, unicellular animals, they are examples of unicellular organization. All multicellular plants and animals. So what you find on the right side picture, all this put together, we call it as multicellular organization. Under the basis of classification, the second factor is based on the body symmetry. So what is body symmetry? It is a plane of arrangement of body parts. Plane. So when you say plane, so before talking about, let me add one more thing. Body symmetry, based on this we classify animals into symmetry and asymmetry first of all. So you don't have certain words, certain concepts in your book. I'm adding extra point. Okay, so concentrate. Okay, so body symmetry. So based on the plane of arrangement of the body parts, we classify all living organisms into symmetry and asymmetry. If you find, for example, first let me say what is meant by symmetry. So basically you find different planes. So if you look into that picture, you can find frontal plane, transverse plane, medial plane, etc. So an animal or a living organism can be divided into various planes or various phases. Maybe I think we can use that word. Okay. So in this case, so actually this is just an idea about symmetry. Okay, planes. Okay, so plane I would relate to maths. For example, you come across x, y, z. So x axis, y axis, z axis. So like that you have their plane. Okay, so you have different planes. Based on that you go for basis of classification. In that there are some animals which are symmetrical in the sense which can be divided into two or more than two equal parts. Okay, so some can be divided only in one plane. For example, on the right hand side I find a turtle or a tortoise which can be divided into only two planes. That is, I find this a line which divides the animal into two equal halves. But at the same time, on your left hand side you find hydra. So actually it is an hydra, so which can be divided into more than three types. Okay, so actually you find in the picture three ways of dividing the animal. So but if you draw any number of lines, you can come across, you find the animal which can be divided into two equal halves. So actually I said before, there are two types. One is symmetry and asymmetry. In case of amoeba, so if you look into amoeba, let me go to the beginning picture where you don't come across, I cannot divide this animal into two equal halves. Any line I draw, I cannot, because it is an irregular shape. So this amoeba is an example of asymmetry. Okay, under body symmetry, this amoeba is an example of asymmetry. That is, the opposite of symmetry is asymmetry. Okay, symmetry, that is, if the animal can be divided into two equal halves, it is called a symmetry, which is divided into two types, one radial symmetry and bilateral symmetry. I hope you can understand. Okay, again I repeat, based on the symmetry, it is divided into symmetrical and asymmetrical. If an animal cannot be divided into two equal halves in any position, any plane, it is called as asymmetry or asymmetry. Okay, if it can be divided into two equal halves, then it is called as symmetry. This symmetry is again divided into two types. One is radial symmetry, for example hydra, which can be divided into any planes, any number of planes, or simply I could say more than one plane. And bilateral, bi means two. So an animal, if it can be divided, or if it gives only two equal halves only in one plane, then it is called as bilateral symmetry. So I here have another picture showing different examples. Let me start with the leftmost top corner. Asymmetry, sponges. So these animals we are going to learn later. Sponges, so it is an example of asymmetry where you cannot divide this animal into two equal halves. Then second I have radial symmetry, again the jellyfish or hydra, which are examples of radial symmetry where it can be divided into many number of planes. Then on the rightmost top corner I have a bilateral symmetry of a lobster. I hope you know what is a lobster. Okay, so which looks like a shrimp or a prawn, but it will be almost the size of a plate. You might have seen in some food related channels. Okay, then we'll go below. So where on the left hand side again sponges given, which is an example of asymmetry. Second one, blue color photo, a jellyfish, which is an example of radial symmetry. And third, fly, it may be a house fly or any fly or any insect. See on the rightmost bottom you find butterfly. So butterfly or any insect or even dog or any animal or any human being is an example of bilateral symmetry. Okay, again at the center you have again another picture, sea anemone. Maybe in this movie called Finding Nemo, you come across that clownfish staying in a home. So in that movie they call it as the home of this clownfish. So that tentacles having animal, that actually it is called a sea anemone, which is actually in the center, bottom center, and it is an example of radial symmetry. So again I repeat, leftmost top corner sponges, again bottom leftmost sponges, example of asymmetry, which cannot be divided into two equal halves, any equal halves, okay, not two equal halves, any equal halves. Then in the center I have jellyfish, then above and below, above orange structure, below yellow structure, which all these three are examples of radial symmetry, which can be divided into any number of equal halves. Then lobster, right topmost corner lobster, then below that butterfly, and right bottommost dog, then left side I have another fly. And generally all animals, all human beings, I mean animals in the sense mammals and human beings, we all are examples of bilateral symmetry. Okay. Again one more example, dolphin, example of bilateral symmetry. Starfish on the right hand side, which is an example of radial symmetry, so which can be divided into any number of equal halves. So by this time I think you will understand what is meant by asymmetry and symmetry. Second one is the symmetry classified into two types as radial symmetry and bilateral symmetry. So this is a general collection of pictures. All these are examples of radial symmetry. So I have a flower, then starfish, then snow, which is a non-living. Then below I find kind of plants, two kinds of plants. Then orange, an orange cut into half. Okay. So all these are just examples of radial symmetry. Under the basis of classification, the third factor is germ layers. So based on the germ layers, we classify the animals. So what is meant by germ layer? Actually, if you look into this development, so we call it as embryology, so where after fertilization, after this process, zygote is formed. Zygote becomes a multicellular structure, and it undergoes various metamorphosis, undergoes growth, undergoes development, and then that becomes a baby. So during that process, where you come across that one-celled zygote, which is formed after fusion of a male and a female gamete, it slowly starts to divide. So they call it as mitosis. One cell divides into two, two becomes four, four becomes 8, multiples of 2. So that way you get a mass of cells. And after that, so first stage they call it as blastula, blastula. Then the next stage is called as gastrula. So like that you have different types of embryonic development. That embryo later becomes a baby in all cases of animals. So during that embryonic development, where you come across appearance of germ layers. So in some organisms you come across just 2 germ layers are formed, and in some animals you come across 3 germ layers formed. So based on this, we classify the animals into, as it is in the screen, diploblastic animals. So again I said before, di means 2, so diploblastic animals, and triploblastic animals. So tri means 3, for example tricycle. So rickshaw is called as tricycle. So for example auto, so where you come across 3 wheels, 3 tires, so they call it as tricycle. Here it is called as based on the germ layers, based on the number of germ layers, they are divided into, or they are classified into diploblastic animals and triploblastic animals. Okay, so this you mainly come across during the embryonic development. inside a mother or inside a egg. Okay, so this picture shows two structures. First one, which is on the left side, a diploblastic organism, diploblastic structure, and second one is on the right side is triploblastic. So in case of this diploblastic organisms or diploblastic animals, where you come across two layers, that is outer ectoderm. So what you find in purple structure, outer ectoderm, and inner endoderm. So actually the center layer is missing, which actually it is called as mesoglia, which is not a layer at all but a hydrostatic skeleton. They call it as hydrostatic. So a liquid, just a fluid, it's not a cell, it's not a tissues. So basically on the left hand side, diploblastic organisms, diploblastic animals, where you come across two layers, ecto and endo. So ecto means outside, endo means inside. On the right hand side, where you find a triploblastic structure, where you have three layers, outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, and inner endoderm. So when you have three layers, ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm, those are called as triploblastic animals. If there is only two layers, then those are called as diploblastic animals. Okay, diploblastic organisms or diploblastic animals. So example for diploblastic animal is hydra, and example for triploblastic animal is rabbit. Okay, so basically when you look around, when you concentrate on this basis for classification, you find the lowermost organisms. So you're going to learn later all the lowermost organisms. For example, they come under unicellular, and secondly they come under asymmetry. Then third, they come under germ layer, they come under diploblastic. So like that you come across. Similarly, you are going to learn now coelom, where acoelomates, they come under, lower organisms, they come under acoelomates. Okay, so like that, this is a clue. What I am trying to say is, this is a clue. After learning a full classification of animal kingdom, you will find the lower organisms coming under one category. For example, they may be unicellular, or they may be diploblastic, or they may be acoelomate. So like that. And higher animals, higher organisms, they come under, for example, they come under multicellular. Secondly, they may be radial or bilateral symmetry, and third, they have this so-called triploblastic structure. Like that, you come across this, as you see in the screen. What you are going to learn next topic, they will be eucoelomates. Okay, right. So the fourth factor based on which we go for this classification is the nature of coelom. What is coelom? First of all, so it is a fluid filled body cavity. So actually a fluid filled body cavity is called as coelom, and this coelom, which actually separates the digestive tract from the body wall. So you have a body wall, outer body wall, and internally we have a digestive tract. In between this we have a gap, we have a space. If that space is filled with a fluid, and that fluid is called as coelom, and based on this presence or absence of coelom, we classify the animals into three types. What are they? So move on to the right part of the screen. It can be classified into 1. Acoelomates, 2. Bottom pseudocoelomates, and at the center you find another word, eucoelomates. Okay, so that is, if the animal does not have a body cavity at all, no fluid filled body cavity at all, then those are called as acoelomates. Okay, so absence of coelom, you use the word A. In many concepts you come across. For example, asexual reproduction, for example, aerobic, anaerobic respiration. So like that, A, or we use AN. Okay, so here we use A, acoelomates, where the body cavity is absent. Secondly, that is the actually in this screen we have in the third position pseudocoelomates. What is pseudocoelomates? Pseudo means false. For example, in amoeba we learn pseudopodia, and we have a bacteria named as Pseudomonas. So where P is silent, so actually the spelling is Pseudo, pseudo. Okay, so pseudo means false. So again I repeat, acoelomate, absence of the body wall. Second, pseudocoelomates, where there is a false body cavity. Actually, let me tell like how Vadivel says, irukku ana illa, like that. We have this so-called this pseudocoelomates, which is actually not true, which is a false. Okay. Then third, true coelomates. Actually in the book they have given coelomates, but in higher classes you learn this as EU. EU means true. Okay. For example, prokaryote, eukaryote. Eu, that is where their prokaryote, karyo means nucleus, prokaryote which does not have a well-defined nucleus. Eukaryote, that is animals which have true nucleus, are called as eukaryotes. Like that here, eucoelomates, that is animals which have a true coelom or true fluid filled body cavity. So these are the three types of animals based on the coelom. Okay, acoelomate, pseudocoelomate and eucoelomate. The example for acoelomate is tapeworm. So in Tamil it is called as Nakupuchi. Okay, tapeworm. So the picture that is on the right hand side. And the example for pseudocoelomate is roundworm. The difference is tapeworm, which will be so lengthier, where you find a segmented body will be of different segments, like how you find the abdomen of insects, segmented body, you'll find the divisions there. But roundworm, it appears like a thread, like how the thread that you tie answer papers. Okay, so the length also will be smaller, smaller in the sense almost the size of your thread, okay, that you use to tie the answer papers. Okay, and you don't come across segmented bodies. Okay, so that makes the difference between tapeworm and roundworm. So acoelomate example is tapeworm, so don't forget. So this picture should come into your mind when you write the exam. And eucoelomate example is, pseudocoelomate example is roundworm. And third, eucoelomates, all mammals are examples of eucoelomate. So I think you remember last class I said about mammals which has mammary gland, or in other words I would say which gives birth to young one and feed the young one with milk. So in Tamil it is called as palutigal. Okay, so all mammals are examples, or even I would say higher forms of animals, they come under eucoelomates because they have a true body cavity. Thank you.